Ever wondered how much the world owes? How colossal can this figure be? Well, let's unravel this mystery together. Global debt is a concept that might seem abstract, but it's very real and impacts us all. Imagine every country as a person, each with their own credit card. They borrow money to invest in infrastructure, social services, and more. Just like your own credit card debt, it's manageable as long as you can make the payments and the debt is used for investments that grow over time. But what happens when the debt becomes too large? By the third quarter of 2023, the world had collectively chalked up a mind-boggling $307 trillion in debt. Yes, you heard it right, $307 trillion. That's 12 zeros for those counting at home. So who does the world owe this money to? It's a common misconception that countries primarily owe money to other countries. While it's true that countries do lend to each other, the majority of global debt is owned by private sector institutions. These can be banks, mutual funds, private investors, and even pension funds. Now you might be wondering, how does this debt accumulate? It's a combination of factors, actually. Governments borrow money to finance their spending. When their expenditures exceed revenues, they have budget deficits. To cover these, they issue bonds and take loans. Over time, these add up, contributing to the national debt. Multiply this by the number of countries in the world, and voila, you have the global debt. So, with the global debt reaching such astronomical figures, what are the implications for us? Hold on to that thought as we dive into it in the next scene. Now imagine owing so much money that it becomes almost impossible to pay back. What happens then? Well, that's the question we're grappling with when we talk about the staggering global debt that reached an eye-watering $307 trillion in the third quarter of 2023. Let's break it down. High global debt has far-reaching implications, not just for governments, but for economies and individuals as well. For countries, high debt often means spending a substantial portion of their budget on servicing this debt, leaving less room for essential services like healthcare, education, and infrastructure. On a broader economic scale, high global debt can lead to inflation. As countries struggle to pay back their loans, they may resort to printing more money. This leads to an increase in the supply of money, reducing its value and causing prices to rise, which we know as inflation. And let's not forget about interest rates. Governments borrow money by issuing bonds. When a country's debt level is high, it's seen as a risky investment. To make their bonds attractive to investors, governments often have to offer higher interest rates. This trickles down to the individual level, making loans and mortgages more expensive for everyday people. But the burden doesn't stop with our generation. High global debt also means a significant burden on future generations. They are the ones who will ultimately bear the brunt of the debt through higher taxes or reduced public services. So, when we're talking about global debt, we're not just talking about numbers on a screen. We're talking about real, tangible effects on people's lives, on their ability to afford a house, to receive quality health care, to secure a good education for their children. But don't worry, not all is doom and gloom. There are potential ways out of this debt crisis. Have you heard about the recent spot Bitcoin ETF? Could it be the key to escaping the clutches of fiat money? Well, let's first understand what a spot Bitcoin ETF is. It's an exchange-traded fund that directly tracks the price of Bitcoin. This means that the ETF's value is determined by Bitcoin's spot price, which is its current market price. This differs from futures-based Bitcoin ETFs, which are based on contracts predicting the future price of Bitcoin. Now, why is the concept of a spot Bitcoin ETF so intriguing? Well, it provides an accessible route for institutional and retail investors to gain exposure to Bitcoin without the need to own the underlying asset. That is, without having to buy Bitcoin itself. This broadens the pool of potential investors, which can lead to increased liquidity and potentially stabilize Bitcoin's price. However, like all good things, it comes with its own set of challenges. For one, the regulatory environment for cryptocurrencies is still uncertain in many jurisdictions. This can pose risks for investors. Additionally, Bitcoin's price volatility can significantly affect the value of the ETF, which could lead to potential losses. But here's the crux: the rise of Bitcoin. ETFs represents a shift away from traditional fiat money systems. It's no secret that the world's debt is skyrocketing, reaching a staggering $307 trillion in the third quarter of 2023. Fiat currencies, which are backed by the trust and confidence in governments, are vulnerable to inflation and economic instability. On the other hand, Bitcoin, with its decentralized nature and limited supply, offers an alternative that could potentially mitigate these risks. The introduction of a spot Bitcoin ETF could be a game changer, enabling more people to invest in Bitcoin and potentially helping to diversify away from debt-ridden fiat currencies. It's a step towards a potential new financial paradigm, one less dependent on traditional systems and more open to the possibilities of digital currencies. So, Bitcoin ETF seems promising, but is it really that simple? While Bitcoin ETF offers a glimmer of hope, it's not without its challenges. As we pivot towards the world of cryptocurrencies, we must acknowledge that the Bitcoin ETF, despite its potential, comes with its own set of hurdles. These challenges range from market volatility to regulatory concerns and the inherent risks of investing in cryptocurrencies. First on the docket is market volatility. Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are infamous for their price fluctuations. One day, Bitcoin might be skyrocketing and the next it's plummeting. This volatility can be nerve-wracking for investors, especially those who are risk-averse. It also makes the Bitcoin ETF, much like the cryptocurrency it's based on, a high-risk, high-reward investment. Next up, we have regulatory concerns. As Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies become more mainstream, they're catching the attention of regulatory bodies worldwide. In fact, the approval of the Bitcoin ETF itself was a long, drawn-out process with several hitches along the way. Even now, there's ongoing debate about how these digital assets should be regulated. This uncertainty adds another layer of risk to the Bitcoin ETF. Finally, there's the broader issue of investing in cryptocurrencies. While they offer the potential for high returns, they're also highly speculative and relatively untested compared to traditional assets. Moreover, they're susceptible to cyber threats, and there's a learning curve involved in understanding and managing these digital assets. All these factors make the Bitcoin ETF a relatively complex and risky investment option. So, while Bitcoin ETF is an exciting prospect, it's not a magic bullet for the global debt crisis. Despite the challenges, there is always room for hope and innovation. As we gaze into the future, the landscape of global debt and Bitcoin ETFs might seem like a complex puzzle. But remember, every puzzle can be solved, and every problem can be a stepping stone to a better solution. The global debt, having reached a staggering $307 trillion in the third quarter of 2023, is indeed a behemoth. But it is not an insurmountable one. The key lies in responsible financial management. Governments and financial institutions worldwide must come together to address this issue, focusing on fiscal responsibility, sustainable borrowing, and strategic repayment plans. But as we grapple with this colossal debt, we must also remember to look towards the horizon for innovative solutions. And this is where Bitcoin ETFs come into the picture. As a relatively new financial instrument, Bitcoin ETFs offer a glimmer of hope. By providing an alternative to traditional fiat money, they present an opportunity to diversify our financial ecosystem and perhaps even alleviate some of the pressures of global debt. However, let's not forget that Bitcoin ETFs are not a magic bullet. They bring their own set of challenges, from regulatory hurdles to market volatility. But these challenges should not deter us. Instead, they should spur us on to refine, improve, and adapt these new financial technologies to our advantage. And as we journey into this uncertain future, let us not lose sight of the bigger picture. The global debt crisis is not just about numbers. It's about the lives of billions of people around the world. It's about creating a sustainable and equitable financial system for all. So, as we continue to navigate the intricate labyrinth of global debt and explore the potential of Bitcoin ETFs, let's remember to do so with foresight, responsibility, and innovation. Because it is through these principles that we can turn challenges into opportunities and create a future that is not just financially stable, but also socially equitable. As we navigate through this complex world of global debt, remember that every crisis also presents opportunities for change and growth.